My name is Professor Dame Alison Peacock and I lead the Chartered College of Teaching. And I'm going to speak to you today about why I think you've chosen to engage in the best job in the world. I'm talking to you as you begin your career as a teacher, and I want to encourage you that what you're about to do in your career genuinely makes the difference. So congratulations, first of all, because getting to this point is a real achievement. But I just want us to reflect for a moment on what it means to be a teacher. You can think of teachers that you have known throughout your career to date. Think of teachers in school, but also maybe some of your lecturers at university, and you will know that teachers create the weather in their classrooms. You can think of classrooms where it's been a safe place to learn, where it's been okay to have a bit of a laugh occasionally, but where you feel that you are known and understood and trusted, and where the highest expectations are offered to you. And you also know what it's like to be in an environment where you're constantly feeling a bit nervous maybe, or worried that you're going to be picked upon, or not able to settle because you're not sure what your peers think of what's going on in the classroom. As a teacher, you create the weather. It's you that makes the difference to every student in your classroom. No pressure, but it absolutely is. And if you've decided that what you're going to offer in your classroom is a space where you're highly organised, but also where everybody is respected and valued, then that will hold you in really good stead as you move forward. I want you to think about you as a new professional, because you are on the sort of the threshold of a new part in your career, and you are beginning to establish a professional identity. As soon as you work within a school, even as a trainee, you had a professional identity, but you're going to be seen as a teacher. You're going to be respected for your status as a teacher. And let's just think for a moment about what that professional identity means. I think the first thing is that respect is not something that you can demand. Respect is something that is given to you, and it depends essentially on your behaviour and the way that you treat others. And if you don't respect yourself to start with, then it's very unlikely that others will respect you. So that's the first thing. Respect yourself. Look after yourself. Make sure that you have all that you need to be as effective as you can be. Try and have enough sleep. Try and have enough opportunity to take some rest and some time away from work. Because it's really important that you understand how important you are, especially now that you're in a role that will influence so many others. Trust is important. Again, we can't demand trust, but when we're in a situation where we're able to trust others, then they know that actually an environment is such that they can trust you too. Trust really matters. Whatever you say you're going to do, you need to carry through on. So be very careful not to issue rash demands or suggestions or consequences, because you need to be trusted that you are someone who stands by their word. Which is not to say, by the way, we all make mistakes in those early days. So it's better to retract than to pursue something to the bitter end if it's all going wrong. But essentially what you want to do is to create an environment where you know that you can be trusted and that you trust those around you to work really hard. Working hard, the third point, modelling the behaviours you wish to see in others. This is really important as well. This is not about you doing all the work and everybody else sitting back and watching you. So it's not about, sometimes we see teachers who are so intent on doing the best they can do that actually they almost outdo everybody else in the room in terms of rushing around, preparing everything, marking everything. It's balance. You want the students to work for you, the children to work for you, but you want to show them that you really, really care and that all of the things that you're asking them really matter. There's something about staying outwardly calm. There will be lots of times in your career, you may have experienced them already, when actually inside you're feeling like a mush of jelly, that you're really not sure what's going to happen next. But when you present as being calm and measured, with a smile, everybody else kind of feels better around you. It's a bit like I was saying in the previous slide about making the weather. If you act as if everything's going to be okay, then chances are that it probably will. Just to say, recalling an anecdote, back when 9/11 happened, I was a teacher in a classroom, year 6 classroom, in a primary school. And 9/11 had happened the evening before, and I went into school the next morning, and I knew the class really well. I'd taught them for 2 years. And clearly, everybody was talking about what had happened and so on. And the children all sat down expectantly. And James, one of the lads in the class, put his hand up and he said to me, "Mrs. Peacock, is the world going to end?" And I said to the whole class at that point, "No, James, absolutely not. Everything's going to be fine." And you saw the whole class kind of go, "Oh." The reality was I had no idea whether everything was going to be absolutely fine, but there was going to be nothing that was going to be served by a general sense of increased panic. So that notion of staying outwardly calm, even when you're not absolutely sure what you're going to do next, maybe, is really important. And then this idea of really listening. It's easy to talk about listening. It's much more difficult to do. So genuinely listening and being someone that others know that they can talk to. And listening not only to words, but listening to behaviours really matters. And of course, you will have learned about safeguarding and the issues around that, but if someone confides in you, a colleague confides in you, be the one that they can trust. Be the one where they're not going to suddenly find that their news is all over social media or that you've told everybody else in the staff room. Be someone that they can trust. The sixth area of your professional identity I think is really important is being fair, being consistent. When you survey students or young people about classrooms, one of the things that they will almost always say is that they like teachers who are fair. They like teachers who are seen to be fair. So that is about being consistent. It is about making sure that you're not making rash judgments. It's about making sure that you are treating all of your students equally. It's not about favouritism or, it's really about being seen to be there for everybody. So being fair and being consistent, making sure that you don't have one set of rules one day and then the next morning coming in and sort of saying, "Oh no, well, we're not going to bother with that today," because it's very hard for people to know where they are with you. So being consistent really matters. As a new teacher, in fact, as throughout your career, I think when you become a head of department or when you become a deputy head or a head teacher or a CEO, show humility, ask for advice, admit your mistakes. When I first started as a head teacher of a school that was in special measures, it was my first headship, actually. And I remember the first ever assembly. All the staff were there, they were all round the edge of the room, and I was there with all of the children. So the whole school was kind of looking to me. And of course, I needed to show leadership because here was a school that was in very difficult circumstances. But what I also needed to show, I believed, was that the only way that this school was going to improve would be if everybody was working together and that if everybody helped each other and that we made this a collective endeavour. So in that assembly, I read a storybook called My Huge Bag of Worries. And this is a storybook, a picture book about a child who has a huge bag over their shoulder and they're weighed down with worries. And then they meet a little old lady who says, "Well, what have you got there?" And they take the worries out of the worry bag, and some of them just shrivel up because they go into the sunshine. And some of them, the lady says, "Well, these are grown-up worries, I'll take these away from you." And then the child feels so much better at the end of the book. Anyway, I read this book and I shut the book at the end and I said to the children, looking across the hall, I said, "The thing is, children, I'm really worried because I've never been a head teacher before, and supposing I don't know what to do." And you could see the teachers around the edge of the room like, "Oh, for goodness sake." But then I sort of turned and on my shoulder I'd got a bag and I'd got worries that had been typed out. They were laminated worries, I want you to know, I am a professional. Laminated worries about what was going to happen as I led the school. And they were things like, supposing I get lost or supposing I don't know what to do. in a particular situation. One of the cards that one of the children came out and read out for me was, supposing everybody expects me to have all the answers and I don't know what to do. And the child read this question out and she said to me, "Oh, well, you don't need to worry about that. Look, see over there. Look, that's Mrs. Todd. Mrs. Todd knows everything." And at this point, Darryl, who was the year 4 teacher, kind of sat up and looked around as if to say, "What, me?" And there was that sense at that point, that we're all in this together. This is not about hero leadership. When you become a teacher, you need your class and your classes to work with you, to be with you. You need to be all together. I'm not suggesting on your first day as a teacher that you tell everybody that you don't know what you're doing, but I am suggesting that you have humility. There's something about using humour that is very helpful if you're a teacher, but always do this with kindness. Not humour that's about picking on someone else, but humour that's about the situation or just quirkiness. Children love teachers who are who can see the funny side of things occasionally. There's something really attractive about that, but make sure that you do that with kindness, and then make sure that you can empathise. So when someone tells you something, or when that you can see that something is happening, empathy is a really powerful emotion, and you will need that as a teacher, both for your students, for your children, but also for your colleagues and for your families and parents that you're supporting. Everybody has their own troubles, and as a teacher, very often you may well be the one that someone comes to offload some of that. And that's a huge honour, but it's also can be very stress-inducing. So make sure that if that happens to you, particularly when you're newly teaching, that you have someone else that you can talk to about that, someone that you trust on your staff team who can take that burden from you a little bit, because there will be a lot that's new when you first start teaching. And then, I guess really importantly, number 10, ensure that you're well prepared and organised. Make sure that you know what's going to happen next and that you've got plenty of resources up your sleeve and ideas for what you're going to do if they suddenly all finish after 5 minutes. Now, I said that I thought that listening was really important, and I've put a crocodile on this slide because, again, this relates back to a story of when I was teaching in school and a parent came in and she was very angry. And she was very angry because she wanted her child to have her book changed more often, and she wanted to have her child needed to be listened to read and all kinds of things. And as I listened to her, I realised probably that actually she wasn't really angry about those things. She was just angry about all kinds of things. And with wisdom, I would have sat back and listened and just let her say all of these things. But I was trying to make it all right too quickly. And so as she was telling me all her list of woes about things that were all terribly wrong, I sort of tried to interrupt and say, well, I'm doing my best and we're trying this and we're doing this. And don't you realise Ofsted will be coming in a few weeks and all kinds of things. And she just stormed off. And it all ended pretty badly. And when I reflected about it afterwards, I realised that actually what she needed was a really good listening to. And that weekend I was shopping and I saw a crocodile in the shop, and it was smiling but it had its mouth shut, and I thought that's what I should have done. So I bought the crocodile, put it in my classroom. So be one of those teachers that remembers to listen first rather than justifying all your answers. And I've already talked about this, but knowing when to ask for help is really important. So actually people like to be asked. You will have a mentor, but you'll have other colleagues around you. And generally speaking, people like it. Not if you go to them every 5 minutes and tell them everything's disastrous, but they do like to give advice. People do like to give advice. So it's not a badge of honour to assume that you can cope with everything that ever comes your way and that you will just be able to deal with it. It's much better to be able to be someone who can be responsive and who can ask for help in difficult situations. I think that's really important. Now, I told you at the beginning of this presentation that I represent the Chartered College of Teaching. The Chartered College is a professional body for all teachers. I hope that you will have joined as a trainee teacher. It's absolutely free to join as a trainee. But if you haven't joined yet, then please do. You literally just go to chartered.college, and as an NQT, The cost to join is just £1.88 a month. We very much hope that this is something that you will do alongside joining your union, because your professional body provides opportunities for you to grow your career right from the earliest days. We provide lots of resources online, lots of opportunities for you to study, to learn more, to receive a journal with lots of information in it, but also to write for us. It's about growing your career as a professional. And ultimately, there'll be the opportunity for you to become a chartered teacher should you wish to study to do that. So this is really where you start to take control of what it means to be a teacher. And if you go into a school and they haven't yet heard of the Chartered College, you be the pioneer. You start to show them what's possible, because there's so much that we can learn about teaching. It's endless, but being part of a community where you feel connected with others, where you're celebrated for all of your achievements, and where you know that you're supported in your next steps, that's what we offer at the Chartered College. So do join us. One example, I just showed a slide there with some journals that are received 4 times a year if you're a member of the Chartered College. One of the things that happens in research is that it becomes superseded by new research. And an example would be the much cited 30 million word gap that was identified by Risley. And so lots of people, you may have already heard about this during your course, will be bemoaning the fact that there's a vocabulary gap that exists. But what has been found is that actually there's a way of working with youngsters to make sure that it's the conversational turns that they have, the dialogue they engage in, that makes the difference. And suddenly you move from a research report that makes you feel like, well, I remember listening to that and thinking, well, what can I do about 30 million words that have been lost? I can't make word cards, and even if I could, they wouldn't be able to read them. So how am I going to be able to make a difference? And then you hear about research that says, actually, if you're able to offer a dialogic approach to teaching and create opportunities in your classroom for children to talk to each other, but also talk to adults and be listened to by adults, that can make all the difference. And then you start to think, well, there's something I can do about that. That feels like something that is really important. There's something really that really matters around professional autonomy. Now, over the last year, this has been a year like no other, and we've experienced the pandemic. We've experienced teachers being suddenly asked to teach in a remote way. We've asked teachers to come back into school with some students, not with others. It's been a very, very challenging year. But what's really been impressive, I think, is where we've got schools and teams of school leaders and colleagues who are working together in a really professional way and showing that although they're being issued with endless guidance from government, they're able to use their autonomy to make the best decisions for their students. And the quote on the screen is from Professor Robin Alexander. And I think if ever there was a justification for why we need professions and professionalism, and why we need teachers who are able to teach in a way that is not robotic, it is this. It's being able to not only know what you're going to do in the classroom, but understand why you're doing it. And that's so important. I think this quote really, really matters, because it's about a professional set of behaviours that builds up over time due to intuition and experience, but also due to the reading that you will do, due to the CPD that you will engage with. Your knowledge will build as well. And the two together mean that you are able to be an absolute professional in your classroom. This is not something that you're going to know on day one, but it's a reason why your career builds as a teacher. It's a reason why to be part of professional learning communities. It's a reason why you join the Chartered College. It's about growing your career, growing your understanding, and being able to explain not only to yourself but to others about the decisions that you're taking for your context, your children, your classroom. This is a wonderful book. Kate Clanchy is a resident poet who works with students at the Oxford Spires Academy. Many of those students are young people who are refugees, and she works with them at a lunch club and encourages them to write. And through writing and through poetry, they can express sometimes some of their deepest feelings that they haven't been able to talk about elsewhere. This is what great teachers do. Great teachers transform lives. They make the difference. So to finish, we have a quote here from Maya Angelou. At our best, we are all teachers. You may know the story of Maya Angelou, but when she was a young girl, she was attacked, she was raped, and her attacker was subsequently killed. And this was so shocking for her that she stopped speaking. And for several years during her childhood, she didn't speak at all. But she did used to write poetry. And her teacher was the person who ultimately persuaded her that she needed to speak, because she said to her, Maya, poetry is really only poetry when it's spoken aloud. So Maya began to speak again, and it's teachers who do this. It's teachers who make the difference for all our students. You may not know the difference that you make. You may never know the difference that you've made to young people, but just occasionally there will be children, there will be young people, there will be parents through the years that you will meet, and they will say, remember when this happened? And you may not even remember it. Remember when this happened, because that made a real difference to me. Make sure those reasons are good ones. Make sure those memories are good ones. You're going to be charged with such responsibility, but also have the potential to experience so much joy as an educator. Congratulations. I really hope that your career flourishes, and I'm delighted to have had the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you so very much.